What if the stones themselves were trying to tell us something? Not through carvings or hieroglyphs, but through their very placement, their silent, unwavering gaze towards the heavens. Imagine, for a moment, standing beneath a sky ablaze with stars, the air crisp and cold, beside a monument built millennia ago by hands unknown. You feel it, don't you? That shiver down your spine, the unsettling realization that something profound, something utterly alien, is etched into the landscape around you. It's a feeling that transcends history, a whisper from a distant past that echoes in the present, hinting at a connection so vast, so intricate, that it reshapes everything we thought we knew about our origins. For Dr. Eris Thorne, that shiver was a daily companion. She felt it under the oppressive Turkish sun, dust clinging to her skin as she stood in the pit of Göbekli Tepe. At 12,000 years old, these weren't just the oldest megaliths on Earth. They were an anomaly, a complete contradiction to the timeline of human civilization. Hunter-gatherers weren't supposed to build celestial cathedrals, yet here they were, massive T-shaped pillars carved with uncanny precision, arranged in perfect circles. For years, Thorne and her international team had been doing more than just digging. They were mapping. Using satellite data, archaeoacoustics, and advanced stellar cartography software, they weren't just looking at the stones. They were looking where the stones were looking. And that's where the real mystery began. It wasn't just Göbekli Tepe. Her team's database, a sprawling digital web of coordinates and alignments, pulsed with impossible connections. The Karnak stones in France, thousands of them marching in silent rows, seemed to mirror the same stellar pattern. The ancient desert calendar of Nabta Playa in Egypt, built 1,000 years before the first pharaohs, pointed to the same distant star cluster. From the windswept Orkney Islands in Scotland to the submerged structures off the coast of Japan, a single, coherent blueprint was emerging. These sites, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, built by cultures with no conceivable contact, all seemed to be part of a single, globe-spanning project. They were a network, a silent, stony internet whose purpose was locked away in the cold, distant light of the stars. Thorne, a woman of science and logic, found herself staring at a conclusion her mind refused to accept. Someone, or something, had given our ancestors the same set of instructions. The problem wasn't just the shared blueprint. It was the timeline it implied. The alignments were too precise, tracking not just the sun and moon, but the slow, ponderous wobble of the Earth's axis, the precession of the equinoxes. This is a cycle that takes nearly 26,000 years to complete. To map it, a civilization would need to maintain meticulous astronomical records for millennia, a feat utterly impossible for the scattered, pre-literate peoples who supposedly built these monuments. It was like finding a schematic for a microprocessor sketched in the dirt of a Neanderthal cave. The knowledge itself was the alien artifact. Then, they found the hardware. It began with an anomaly in the acoustic survey data from a newly unearthed pillar at Göbekli Tepe. One of the massive stones was humming. A low, persistent frequency, barely audible, but measurable. It was a clean, pure tone, completely unnatural. After weeks of debate and careful, non-invasive scans, they drilled a core sample. The diamond-tipped bit shattered. Embedded deep within the limestone, perfectly centered, was a small, dark sphere, no bigger than a marble, forged from a material that defied analysis. It was impossibly dense, cool to the touch, and absorbed all light, appearing as a tiny void in the rock. Panic and excitement warred within the team. They kept the discovery a secret, classifying the data under a separate encrypted project. The real shock came 2 months later. A partner team excavating a similar unlisted megalithic site in the Bolivian highlands reported the same acoustic signature. Following Thorne's frantic coded instructions, They performed their own core sample. And there it was. Inside a granite monolith 7,000 miles away was another identical sphere. It wasn't just a shared architectural plan anymore. It was a shared technology. The stones weren't just pointers to the stars, they were nodes in a network. And the quiet hum they emitted was the undeniable proof that after 12,000 years of silence, something was still switched on. The countdown wasn't on a digital clock, but in the slow celestial waltz of the cosmos. Thorne's software had predicted it for months. A grand conjunction, a rare alignment of planets not seen in over 12 millennia, centered on the constellation of Cygnus. Her theory was that this was the moment the ancient clock was designed to recognize. As the night fell over the Anatolian plateau, a palpable tension settled over the Göbekli Tepe dig site. Her small, trusted team was gathered in a portable command tent, screens flickering with data feeds from their partner sites in Bolivia, France, Egypt, and Scotland. All were reporting the same thing. The low-frequency hum was growing louder, rising in pitch, shifting from a bass thrum to an audible, piercing tone. At 02:17 a.m. local time, as the final planet swung into perfect alignment, it happened. The ground at Göbekli Tepe began to vibrate, not from an earthquake, but from a deep, resonant energy emanating from the pillars themselves. Outside the tent, the team watched in stunned silence. The air grew thick, crackling with static that made the hairs on their arms stand on end. The ancient animal carvings on the stones, the serpents, the scorpions, the vultures, began to glow with a soft, internal blue-white light. It wasn't a reflection. The light was bleeding from the very fabric of the rock, tracing the outlines of the creatures as if they were circuits on a motherboard. Then, from the central pillars of the main enclosure, two impossibly straight beams of the same blue light shot upwards, cutting through the night sky. Within seconds, similar beams were reported from every known node in the network. From France, from the Sahara, from the Andes, all converging on a single, mathematically precise point within the Cygnus constellation. Thorne, her hands trembling as she adjusted the high-powered telescopic camera, focused on the target coordinates. At first, there was nothing but the familiar diamond dust of distant stars. But as the beams coalesced, the space they touched began to warp. It shimmered, like a mirage, and the starlight behind it bent unnaturally. The combined energy of the global network wasn't attacking anything. It was revealing something. Through the powerful lens, a shape swam into view, resolving out of the distorted space-time. It wasn't a ship in any conventional sense. It was a vast, silent, crystalline structure, a web of impossible angles and interlocking geometric forms that seemed to defy physical law. It had been there all along, cloaked, hidden, waiting. The megaliths weren't a map pointing to a homeworld. They were a key, a planetary-scale key designed to unlock a door in the sky, to send a single, simple message across the void. We are still here. We are listening. And for the first time in recorded history, something was looking back. The celestial window was brief. As the planets continued their silent journey, their perfect alignment broke. The beams of light from the megaliths faltered, thinned, and vanished. In the sky, the shimmering distortion contracted, and the impossible crystalline structure dissolved back into the blackness, taking its secrets with it. The profound, resonant hum that had vibrated through the very bedrock of the earth ceased. Silence, deep and absolute, fell across Göbekli Tepe and across the world. The network was dormant once more. Dr. Thorne stood frozen, the eyepiece of the telescope still cold against her skin. The data was saved, the spectral analysis captured, the impossible images burned onto a hard drive. She held in her hands the greatest discovery in human history, a truth so monumental it would shatter every religion, every government, every sense of our place in the universe. But what did it mean? For millennia, humanity had looked at these stones and seen tombs, temples, or calendars. We thought we were studying our own past, our own primitive origins. But we were wrong. We weren't the builders. We were the building material. We weren't the message. We were merely the couriers. Our entire history, the rise and fall of empires, our technological leaps, our endless wars, all of it had unfolded under a silent, patient gaze. The question that now haunted Eris Thorne, a question that would echo in the silence for the rest of her life, was not who they were, but what they were waiting for. Were our ancient ancestors willing partners, initiated into a cosmic secret? Or were they just the first phase of a project we were never meant to understand? We had rung a doorbell that was 12,000 years in the making, and now someone on the other side knew we were finally home.